Okay, first up for the week is going to be Black Centurion, a Liberty novel written by Alexander Romanoff. It is 445 pages, $3.99. It's available on Kindle Unlimited, and here's the author's description. A new novel from the best-selling Russian LitRPG author of Small Unit Tactics. Sometimes life can be cruel and unpredictable, snatching away all you hold dear in an instant. When you're betrayed by the one person you love most, the actions you commit in the heat of the moment may derail the rest of your life. You can't undo what's been done, and now an incorruptible AI keeps thwarting your attempts to find the truth. Will you be able to persuade it? This is the opportunity given by an RPG game that works like an international arbitration court, an impartial and error-free machine. For a top-ranked player who has already played millions in the game, this task sounds like child's play, but things aren't as simple as they seem, and this game is totally unlike any other. Our hero will have to save a life, survive, and most importantly, prove to an AI that he's a good guy and deserves to have the one thing he wants more than anything else on Earth. Okay, well, there you go. Full disclosure, I received advanced copy for review. I purchased a copy when it became available. This is a Russian translation story. If you read Small Unit Tactics, you're familiar with the author's kind of style. Overall, this is kind of an okay trip into a Roman RPG world. The world set up with the main character means to change his personality and get a chance to get visitation rights to his kids is written well, but it doesn't feel connected to the in-game story until about 33%, when the main character ends up adopting 9 NPC kids. And I'll be honest, when I read the beginning of the story is set in the real world. It's the main character trying to argue with his brother about trying to get custody for his kids, and actually being a pro gamer and making a bunch of money in this game situation and wanting to use that money to make a legal attempt to get visitation rights. And then he meets with his brother, and it's kind of revealed in the conversation and the incident that occurred where he kind of lost his family, lost his wife and his kids, and lost their there's a whole background situation on the character. And I'll be honest, I liked the writing. I thought it was a really well told little piece of background information and story development for him. And then it kind of doesn't do anything else with the rest of the story. It really is just this nice little short story nugget that doesn't really feel connected to the rest of the story, because the rest of the story is set in this VR game world. And the premise is that he's the main character. There's a setup in the future where judge decisions are made by virtual reality or virtual intelligences. And the main character is supposed to be proving to this virtual intelligence that he's a capable father, that he won't be repeating the incident that caused him to lose his kind of family in the first place. And his brother suggests that he go and play this video game, this MMO, where that same virtual intelligence is kind of overviewing it to prove that he has changed as a person. So it's a really kind of convoluted intro into the story universe. And again, I said that it doesn't really feel like it's connected to most of the story, because even though it's mentioned here and there occasionally about his purpose in playing this game, it doesn't really show up. It doesn't really have a real impact until a few particular points. And it doesn't, and then once he's in the game world, the main character really is just doing this slice of life exploration thing of this world, this MMO, where he's supposed to be using his experience as a professional gamer to kind of figure out the rules of the system and how it's so amazing, lifelike, and how he's supposed to incorporate the kind of backstory development of his character into becoming powerful and leveling and doing quests and stuff. And it's not really until 33% when you actually reminded oh, yeah, that's right, he has this purpose where he's supposed to be proving he's a good father, when he kind of adopts 9 kids, and then that disappears for another good portion of the story. So that setup really doesn't, to me at least, even though it's well written, and I enjoyed it, it didn't really mesh well with the majority of the story. Once again, in the game, the main character, the story is really kind of slice of life, where the main character, again, appreciates how realistic NPCs are, works to help the groups he meets, has regular quests, fights. And I think the thing that people are going to either really like about the story or not is kind of the Roman theme. If you like Roman life and world building and like the description of weapons and culture and stuff, I think you might enjoy this based on that. That's kind of the point where I liked, where I had to, like, how much am I enjoying this based upon like the MMO stuff and the game stuff versus just like this kind of fantasy-esque Roman universe. And I kind of like the fantasy-esque Roman universe a little bit more because the game stuff itself is just kind of okay. There's regular notifications, there's quests, character sheets, all that normal stuff. The only thing the author probably brought into the story that was kind of different and a little original is how the main characters, his character in the game world, his backstory is revealed and developed, and it's kind of this gradual piece and bits thing where he starts out with a limited bit of information about who his character is, and then as he interacts with the game world, it either creates more backstory based upon his actions, or it's revealed as he talks to people who are connected with this character's former life. And I don't want to get too spoilery with it, but it's kind of like, oh, that's a nice way to reveal backstory, I suppose. And it just kind of lends itself to like gradual world building and character development. And I'm always like a fan of like history stuff, even though I'm not a particular fan of like a Roman world. I liked how that was kind of, piecemealed, kind of sprinkled along throughout the entire story instead of like this big gigantic info dump. And how like not the character himself, like his tune, his character, his player character, his backstory mattered to how he was interacting with the world. So I'm like, oh, that's a nice little touch there. Overall, again, it's a good story once the main character gets out into the world and starts to kind of get this view of like what the larger Roman world is like. Other than that, it's a nice little regular action adventure, keeps the story moving. Again, it tries to interject some heart with a setup about him wanting to regain visitation rights to see his kids, but that really doesn't translate well into the story like as a motivating force, at least to me. For his actions, because he just kind of it pops up occasionally like, oh yeah, by the way, remember that thing, here's a little nod to it, but for most of the story it's really just more like a regular like exploration adventure into this Roman kind of fantasy RPG world, which is perfectly fine if that's what you enjoy. I like the little details and Roman customs, weapons, culture stuff, but that's kind of the enjoyment I had on it. For me, I give it a score of 7.3 out of 10. Had a good time with it. Not the best story in the universe, not the worst, just okay, kind of an okay story. That's Black Centurion, a LitRPG adventure with a score of 7.3 out of 10.